Scientists didn't expect to encounter such extraterrestrial life. Humanity faced a threat that changes all living things and the planet itself. The film begins with old footage. A U.S. Air Force commander explains that since 1947, they've received thousands of reports about UFOs from various sources. Then Major Kyo, the author of the book Flying Saucers Are Real, takes the floor, insisting that people are indeed encountering extraterrestrial objects. He shares testimony from a pilot who had a mid-air encounter with a solid, otherworldly object traveling at 500 miles per hour. Later that evening, in a house, a mother, father, and their 2 daughters sit down for dinner. The younger daughter reads a prayer before they eat. Suddenly, the family feels strange jolts, as if an earthquake is occurring. An explosion follows, plunging them into darkness. Once they regain their senses, the parents search for their children. Looking out the window, the girl speculates that it was a terrorist attack, but the father disagrees. He orders everyone away from the window, warning that the air is contaminated. At that moment, the older daughter starts to choke, blood pouring from her mouth. In moments, she dies. Soon after, the father also dies. The mother is horrified, screaming for the younger daughter to run, but within a few minutes, she succumbs as well, just like her husband and older daughter. The little girl, hiding in the closet, survives her family by mere moments. In New York, the news reports on climate change and upcoming changes. However, the broadcast is interrupted by an urgent announcement. The anchor receives news of a strange explosion in Badger, a small town in northern Pennsylvania with a population of 1,300. The causes and exact number of casualties are still unknown. The Pentagon is investigating whether it was a terrorist attack or a natural disaster. Their reporter, Samantha, is already on the scene. She reports that all the town's residents are dead, with no survivors. No one is allowed in, and it's known that the air there is toxic. A woman at home listens intently to the news. Later, as she takes a bath, strange memories begin to surface in her mind. Her relaxation is abruptly interrupted by a knock. When Dr. Lauren Stone opens the door, she sees military personnel from the U.S. Army, who urgently request her to come with them. The explosion in Badger is a matter of national security, and they need her expertise. Arriving at the base with the military, she meets Colonel Roger Emmerich, who introduces her to Professor David Santiago, an astrobiologist. He explains that a meteorite the size of a baseball has fallen, but something seems off. An ordinary meteorite couldn't have released the gas that killed all the people in the area. They have never encountered anything like this before, so the colonel wants them to investigate the site. The scientists prepare for their expedition, but the colonel stops Lauren, believing there may be something extraterrestrial involved. He knows she has written books and believes in alien life. Later, Lauren and Santiago drive to the site of the tragedy. On the way, he mentions having read her book and shows her pictures of his sons, but she remains lost in her thoughts, silent. When they arrive at the meteorite impact site, they find a crater. After surveying the area, Santiago concludes there's nothing of interest and that he came in vain. However, Lauren decides to take photos of the crater and notices a peculiar small red sprout. Carefully examining the plant, she lies down next to it, gently stroking it. That evening, back at home, she studies the photo of the plant and thinks to check the news for similar cases. She finds a report about an incident in Chelyabinsk, Russia. In an interview, a woman recounts how a meteorite fell into the city, leading to a lockdown due to contaminated air and many fatalities. Rumors suggest that something unusual appeared, a seed that grew into a tree, causing the death of nearby animals, though it was eventually cut down. Shocked, Lauren Googles the woman's name and learns that she was shot in front of her children. The next day, Dr. Maria Pasalo and Dr. Kate Hurd perform an autopsy on Robert Windsor, who died from the meteorite explosion. They are observed by military personnel, scientists, and doctors. After a preliminary examination, Kate notices that the corpse has normal skin and no rigor mortis. As they make the first incision, a strange silver-black liquid oozes from the wound, only to retract back into the body and heal the incision moments later. Suddenly, Robert sits up on the gurney. Terrified for her safety, Kate leaves the operating room. CDC Director Karen McKnight informs the resurrected man of his location and asks him to raise his hand if he understands. He does not respond. Maria decides to stay and asks what to do. Karen tells her to check Robert's pulse. Approaching him cautiously, Maria gasps, saying there's no pulse, his body is cold, and there's no blood pressure. This can't be happening. Suddenly, they all hear screams, and upon investigating the noise, they discover that the other deceased have also risen. News of the resurrected people has leaked, and journalists surround the military base in an attempt to get photos and details. Lauren feels very strange. David approaches her, offering help, but she assures him that she's fine. Doctors examine the resurrected individuals, showing them photos of their loved ones, but none of them react. The arriving governor demands answers, questioning why these 49 people are the only ones to have come back among thousands who died. A scientist explains that they have a theory. These individuals were closest to the explosion and inhaled fragments of the meteorite, which led to transformations in their internal organs and the emergence of a new life form. All others died from inhaling the toxic gas, meaning Badger is not safe without chemical protection. Suddenly, a woman who had been working with the doctor turns away from him. Lauren meets with the colonel and informs him that a similar explosion occurred in 2013 in Chelyabinsk, where people died from the same symptoms. She is convinced this was not the work of the Russians, they are victims too, it's part of some evil plan. The colonel, however, does not believe her. During a meeting, military personnel, politicians, and scientists listen to Karen's report. She states that the resurrected individuals have no pulse, no breath, and no noticeable brain activity. They do not eat or sleep. Physiologically, they are dead, but their blood and tissues contain compounds that scientists cannot yet identify. It appears that the victim's DNA is transforming into unknown extraterrestrial DNA. After Karen's presentation, Lauren takes the floor. She discusses the Chelyabinsk incident, explaining that there was a meteorite fall and subsequent deaths. She believes the government concealed critical information, even burning a small town to cover it up. She insists that it's all too coincidental, and they need answers. The president, after listening to her, asks for more evidence beyond YouTube videos and possibly photoshopped pictures, but she has nothing more to provide. After the meeting, Lauren goes to a store and buys some drinks. Sitting in her car, childhood memories resurface. In the hospital, relatives continue to try to reach the resurrected, but they remain unresponsive. Soon, Lauren enters the room with the risen individuals. She begins speaking to one of the girls, sharing her experience about her mother's death. During her monologue, her phone rings. As she pulls it out, she dismisses the call, and the screen shows a photo of the small sprout. At that moment, the resurrected girl unexpectedly grabs Lauren's hand. Lauren reports the recent events to the colonel, expressing her belief that she reacted to the sprout. The colonel asks what it is, but she brushes it off as an ordinary plant, nothing remarkable. David interjects, recalling that when Muslims pray, they all face a specific direction, toward Mecca. He points out that if you look at the map, they are facing north, where Badger is located. With a heavy sigh, the colonel announces that they have found the sprout. The news shows a massive plant, and no one knows what it is. It's likely an extraterrestrial object. Lauren watches the screen with a strange expression of joy. Dressed in protective suits, a team of scientists and Robert head to the strange tree. What they see shocks them. The plant is gigantic. As they bring the resurrected man closer to it, they observe that he seems to regain consciousness. They also notice that his eye color has changed to bright blue. Meanwhile, Robert examines his hands, the snow, and the tree, informing the group that he will stay near the plant, as human environments are lethal for him. At a press conference, Lauren explains that, like most earthly plants that produce oxygen, this tree generates gas that allows them to survive in this environment. Journalists are puzzled about how aliens made it here, and Lauren discusses wormholes that exist thousands of miles from Earth. Lauren's interview is broadcast on television, and an elderly man sits on his couch watching. Her phone rings. It's her therapist reminding her that she has missed several sessions. The doctor insists she must call back to schedule an appointment. Suddenly, there's a knock at her apartment door. When she opens it, she sees her father. She isn't particularly pleased to see him but lets him in. He glances at the telescope and recalls how, on her 8th birthday, she asked for a laboratory as a gift. They were surprised but agreed. However, her passion and obsession with science and projects spiraled out of control, worrying her mother. Ignoring her father's words, she asks how he's doing. He smirks, noting that at his age, what can really be going on? He expresses regret and tells her he misses her. Stepping closer, he notices she takes a step back. Sighing heavily, he bids her farewell and leaves. The next day, the colonel informs Lauren that Robert wants to speak only with her. They tried to engage him with the entire department, but it didn't work. He has prepared a list of questions for her to investigate what it is, where it came from, and what it wants. Dressed in a protective suit, Lauren heads to meet Robert. Sitting by the tree, he reveals that his planet has been destroyed. They were searching for a new home and found Earth. The seed of this tree will not grow anywhere else, and they were given the coordinates to Earth. Curious, Lauren asks who provided this information. Robert replies that it was someone from Earth, named Supernova 94. This individual sought them out and made contact, allowing them to learn the strengths and weaknesses of humanity. Noticing that people are approaching the tree, Robert asks them to be driven away, but Lauren explains that they won't leave. The tree is destroying the Earth. He then states that they are used to fighting and will not leave quietly. Using his supernatural abilities, Robert unleashes a wave of energy, causing those around him to scream in pain. It's as if they are going mad, turning on each other and firing weapons. Lauren and a few other men manage to escape Robert's influence. Realizing the tree must be eliminated, the military launches missiles at it. However, the rockets fail to reach their target. The tree is surrounded by a protective dome. The elderly man listens to the news, learning about the dome around the tree and the person nicknamed Supernova 94, who has established contact with an alien civilization. He enters his room and pulls out his old notes, opening a notebook to see the name Supernova 94, heavily circled and underlined. The news reports strange occurrences, unusual sounds coming from the forests, the ground shaking as if from earthquakes, and mysterious fogs in some cities that are killing people. In India, numerous explosions result in thousands of casualties. Martial law is declared in several countries, and power is handed over to the military. Farmers report that their entire harvest has been lost, rotting underground. Turning off the TV, Lauren grabs her belongings and leaves. Across the globe, people pray to their gods. The dead are cremated, while the living struggle to understand what is happening. Meanwhile, Lauren heads to her father's house. Approaching the shed where her laboratory once was, she peers through a boarded-up window. Hesitating to go inside to see her father, she ultimately decides to leave. Arriving at the tree and Robert, she tries to comprehend what is going on. He then reveals that they came to Earth because of her. Extending his hand, he shows her her past, which had occasionally resurfaced in fragments in her memory. Lauren, as a young girl, is riding in the car with her father. He asks her not to tell their mother, as the place they're heading to is very secret. Upon arriving, her father leaves with a group of people, asking her to wait by the entrance. Curious, Lauren secretly follows the group and overhears them discussing an extraterrestrial being. After they leave, she approaches the capsule, and somehow the creature slips into her body. When she returns home, she asks for her own laboratory and begins constructing a device. Her parents become concerned about her behavior. She has become withdrawn, and her knowledge surpasses that of an ordinary child. Over time, she successfully invents a communication device. Looking at the calendar, she introduces herself as Supernova 94 and transmits Earth's coordinates. Her parents tolerate her eccentricities for a while, but eventually, they forbid her from pursuing science. Upset with her mother, Lauren promises that she will soon die, and not long after, her mother passes away. Worried, her father takes her to doctors, who discover a new form of DNA within her, as if she is half human, half something else. As the woman remembers all this, she weeps, while Robert removes her protective mask, telling her she no longer needs it. She is home now. The elderly man recalls intercepting conversations from a girl named Supernova 94, but they never understood who she was speaking to. Strange objects begin appearing worldwide. They resemble spheres and are found everywhere. In forests, the Sahara, on farms, lakes, and large cities. The peculiar sounds originate from these objects. Various theories arise. Some believe they grew from the ground, while others think they were delivered by a giant spaceship. Suddenly, the alien spheres explode simultaneously across the globe. Clouds of black smoke billow in every direction. There is no chance for people to evacuate. The last surviving humans record videos, explaining that the aliens created an environment suitable for themselves. Their capsules are connected to the roots, poisoning the soil, growing beneath people's feet. Yet the main question remains, where did they come from? Earth is no longer suitable for human life. The planet has transformed. Evolution has begun. No one managed to escape. All terrestrial species and plants have perished. No one survived. Now, it's an entirely different world. As for Lauren, her journey has come to an end. She is finally home. What do you think? If aliens were to arrive on Earth, would we have a chance to survive? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, give a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next videos.